Hi and welcome to Spill the Tea with LLIB. I'm Cal.
And I'm Claire.
And together we founded the incredible platform that is Leading Ladies in Business, a platform that inspires and supports female business women across the globe.
Hi everybody and welcome to Spill the Tea with LLIB. We are here today with the most gorgeous and wonderful, sparkly Kathy McCann.
Oh, thank
you. Kathy has got loads and loads of experience and an incredible story which we can't wait to hear about today. So Kathy, are you ready to spill the tea on what it's like to be a woman in business so far?
I think so. So nervous. So I am actually doing something now that I never in a million years imagined myself doing. So my background is actually in education. So I was a teacher and a senior leader in a school for almost 2 decades. And I think, like what happens with a lot of women, once my kids came along, my opinion on life just totally shifted. And I realised that it just wasn't feasible for me to do that any longer if I wanted to have quality time with my kids, because especially when I was doing the senior leadership role, sometimes I'd be out of the house from 7 till 7, like morning to night. And then I'd have work to do at home in the evenings and weekends. And I think it was when I had my first little girl that I just had that shift in me. But at that point, I just thought I was stuck because I had that belief that I only had that one skill set. I'd done the traditional thing that you get encouraged to do by society, which is, go to school, get good grades. Oh, that's very American, isn't it? Get good results in your exams, go on to university, get a career, and then stay in that safe, happy career, progress up the ladder, which I was doing. I was always good at my job. I never really wanted to do any leadership stuff though, but I kind of just fell into it accidentally. Fell into middle leadership, then senior leadership, found myself climbing up the ladder. And then when that was happening, it was actually taking me away from the part of the job that I loved the most, which was being with the kids. So when I had my first little girl, I just thought there's got to be something more, but I just didn't know what that could possibly be. And then it wasn't until I had my little boy a few years later that I found the product side of my business. So I first found that as a client. So I won't go into my big health journey, but, I've been quite poorly on and off for a number of years. And when I had my little boy, it was my mum actually purchased this set of products for me. And it was something called a 30 Days to Healthy Living plan. Yeah. And I have to be totally honest, I thought that it was just another one of these fad diets. I'd done them all. I'd done the eat cereal for 3 meals a day, live off shakes. I'd done them all in an effort to lose weight over the years. But with this one, within 10 days, it sounds so dramatic, but it honestly transformed my health. So what happened then was people were noticing the change in me and commenting. I was so much more energised and vibrant, and they'd see me being so lethargic and run down and just worn out by life. So they were asking me what I was doing. I was naturally recommending it to everybody anyway. And then it was pointed out to me that the way the business worked was you could earn money simply by recommending something that I loved. So in my head, I thought, I'd just started maternity leave and I was like, well, do you know what? Maybe this can tide me over to take the full year's maternity leave and just do it for a little bit of pocket money. But then I absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the brand. I fell in love with the product. I fell in love with the community, a bit like Leading Ladies in Business, a gorgeous community of people. And when I looked properly at the business model, I realised that it was everything that I'd been looking for, but just not in the package that I ever imagined that it would come in. So I've continued to build that up alongside teaching. So at the end of that year maternity, I was able to just go back part-time and I stayed part-time. And I thought at that point, this is me, I've got it made, part-time, brilliant, that's perfect, that's all I want. But actually, you'll know this because you were a teacher, even being part-time, you're still working full-time hours as a teacher. And then I'd be off, I had 2 days off and I'd be getting emails through constantly and things that couldn't be left. And I tried both ways. I tried not responding to emails on my days off, but then I'd open them up on a Sunday and it'd be like, oh, I'm going to do all of these things before tomorrow morning. Or, tried to respond to them, but then it was like, well, I'm working full-time hours. So I thought I'm going to continue to build this. And I did. And ultimately, I could walk away from the teaching job, not because I was massively rich, but because I had enough money to cover my bills. And also I'd grown a lot in myself, the confidence and the belief in myself. I think that's the best part of it, actually. It gave me the confidence to realise that actually I don't just have that one skill set. That one skill set that I've got is a massive range of skills that can be, adapted to a multitude of different businesses. So it started with the product side. And then when I walked away from teaching, I then had the flexibility of time to explore all the other wellbeing things that I love. So when I was a kid, I was very woo-woo, I saw ghosts and I loved crystals, but I just shut it off because, again, what society expects is that you just go down to be successful. You go down that traditional route and path. I opened that all up again and things just seemed to slot into place. One of the ladies from Leading Ladies in Business contacted me one day, so lovely, and she said, I want to offer you a free course. It was Skillful. I want to offer you a free course because I see you like being very supportive on the platform and things. I want to give something to you. And old me wouldn't have been able to accept anything like that. But I was like, no, this is meant to be. So I was like, okay, great. And I looked at all of the courses and it was all like beauty stuff and facials was on there. And I thought, well, do you know, that I've got skincare and I've got makeup products and like that arm of the business. I'm more passionate about the wellbeing side of it. But I thought I'm going to pick facials because it'll give me a bit more knowledge about that. But then I ended up taking that down the woo-woo route and creating the Law of Attraction facial. So once I was qualified in facials, that was my first venture into like holistic wellbeing sessions. So I created the Law of Attraction facial. And the point of that is people have a nice relaxing facial and it's getting them into that receptive mode to then be able to manifest like what it is that they want to call in. So they're listening to positive affirmations while having that facial done. And then at the end of the facial, when they're nice and relaxed in that receptive mode, I do a really powerful visualization exercise with them. So that was my first little thing. And then just so randomly, one of the other ladies from the product side of the business gifted me with a theta healing session as a Christmas present. And I went to it expecting it to be like a Reiki session. And it is a type of energy healing like Reiki. So I had Reiki a couple of times in the past. And for me, it had just always been very relaxing and soothing and just like, a nice floaty, lovely experience. And I thought theta healer was going to be the same. But the girl that I went to in the nicest possible way had me sobbing within like about 10 minutes of the session. And I just found it so, so powerful.
Yeah.
It was a girl called Jessica Hayden Smith, if anyone wants to go to her for a session. She's amazing. So then I was like, I need more of this. And when for my own healing. And when I looked into it, it was, minimum £100 for an hour session. And then I found a course to learn how to do it yourself, like just a basics course for it. And that was like £450 for 2.5 full days. So I was like, I'm doing that because that's many more hours. I've always got my little Del Boy head on as well. It was like, that's better value. So I was just doing that for me. But then when I did that course, I realised I was really passionate about that as well. So now I do that. And that's probably my favourite holistic session that I do because it's all about resolving your subconscious blocks and self-limiting beliefs on 4 different levels. So things from this lifetime, things from past lives, things from the genetic line, and the level that I can never really describe to everybody is the soul level, and that's just the essence of what makes you who you are. And it's a really hard session to describe how it works. So I try my best when people book in, but then they always say I never really knew what to expect, but it's absolutely mind-blowing. And at the end, it's amazing to see like how much people have moved forwards in their lives, just from one session. So that's probably my favourite. And then, I'm waffling now, but then the other thing that I just wanted to touch on was when I left teaching. It took me to have a full-on mental health breakdown, by the way, before I shut the door on teaching. I needed that kick up the bum from the universe to go, hang on, this isn't aligned with you anymore. And obviously it was horrendous at the time, but I believe that was a blessing in disguise. Now looking back, and I do believe that your breakdowns lead to your breakthroughs 100%.
I love that. Me too. Say that again.
But which bit? Breakdowns lead to breakthroughs? Yeah, absolutely.
I have similar. Your darkest moments can always be the springboard for your biggest successes.
I feel like I need one now.
And also another one that I love.
Keep your tea bag in your cup.
No.
Another one that I love is like, there's no such thing as failure. Like I believe that every perceived failure is just a stepping stone on your way to your success. But yeah, when I had the breakdown and everything, when I got out of teaching, and it took me, I was off for maybe 9 months, and then I went back and I still did a full year before I made that decision that, you know, it definitely wasn't for me anymore. I kind of wanted to go back because I didn't want to leave under those circumstances.
On
but
your
I
terms.
kind of knew deep down. But I had it in my head that I didn't want to work with kids anymore because I associated every aspect of school life with that trauma of that. You know, I was told I had severe anxiety and depression at the time, which totally shocked me because I was like, I thought, you have to be really down and miserable to have depression, whereas mine was more like overwhelmed. I was crying all the time, but I wasn't sad. But yeah, so I thought, I'm done with kids. But then actually I remembered that was the part of teaching that I loved. So then I started doing children's holistic therapies as well. And I think it's something that's so needed. And again, that's one of the reasons why I felt so misaligned with teaching, because when I went back, it was just after the pandemic. So we were still kind of in bubbles and things. And we were encouraged to be teaching an awful lot of English and maths, which is obviously very important. But I was looking at these kids like having panic attacks, some of them coming into school. And I was like, actually, they need yoga, they need meditation, they need like all this holistic wellbeing support. So that's another thing about what I do now that I really love, is the sessions that I do with families and children.
It's incredible. And it's so interesting that you said at the start when you were talking about the educational route, you used the word safe, and you said the safe route. And actually, you know, going into, you know, any type of college, university, and the wellbeing has got to be there, because it's not the safe route for wellbeing and mental health. From what I'm seeing as a counsellor now,
100%.
Most of my clients are struggling with the stress, the pressure that, you know, oh, you have to be a teacher, you have to do. And actually the world, you know, running your own business is harder. You know, it's harder in that sense of, you know, you're accountable for everything, your social media, your website, you know, absolutely everything. So I suppose it's not harder, but it's more there's so many more hats you have to jump into. Where when I was in school and when I was doing that one job, there were other jobs, but you had that team around you, I suppose. So yeah, you just picked up on the fact that you said safe.
Do you know what I think is safe now, though? I think the safest thing to do is to follow your heart and follow your joy. And I think if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that there actually isn't a safe job. And yet maybe compared to some other jobs, teaching is more of a secure career to go into. But I have to be perfectly honest, when I was struggling with my mental health, after being a really good teacher, if I do say so myself, I really didn't feel that my job was safe at that point. I honestly didn't.
It's just an interesting word, isn't it? Safe that we use, but is any job, whether you're self-employed or employed, safe if you're not taking care of your well-being and mental health?
If you haven't got, I think you mentioned Stephen Bartlett previously, I think if you haven't got your health, this is something that he says, you know, what's the one thing that you take away from me? And it means that everything else crumbles. It's your health. So health and well-being is just like first and foremost.
So whatever role you're playing in this life, you know, you've got to be, you're the vessel that's going to go into that career, into that job. You've got to make sure that you're a priority. And that's like what you said before, you never take from other people when, you know, it was offered to you. You've got to give to yourself now. And that's one of the hardest things I feel being.
Do you know what one of the best things is about it as well? This podcast is obviously mainly aimed at women. It's when it gets to that time of the month and I can block out my diary. So, so I can have a rest.
This, didn't we? Yeah, we had a chat about this
and the Sunday night dreads, you know, that's definitely a thing. And I'm sure it exists in other careers and other jobs as well. But the constant low-level anxiety, even before, you know, I was officially diagnosed with mental health issues. I think so many teachers and probably a lot of other professions as well are just living with that constant low level of anxiety every minute of every day. And it has a massive detrimental effect on your overall well-being, because, you know, stress is massively linked in with your gut health as well. And your gut health is your key for like overall well-being. And I always say that gut health is your key for like well-being in mind, body, skin and soul. It really is. And stress massively impacts your gut health. Absolutely. That's another thing that I didn't mention that I'm so passionate about supporting people with as well, is the gut health, because, you know, the majority of your immune system is based within your gut. The majority of your happy hormone, serotonin, is located within your gut. It really is the key to everything. So I think people sometimes wear stress, and I know I did as well, as a badge of honour. It's like, who's the busiest, who's the stressed, who's doing the most. And, you know, I think another one of my passions would absolutely be helping people to see that they can move away from that, and it's okay to move away from that. And also, you know, what serves you at the age of 18 when you're making these career choices doesn't necessarily serve you then in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. And it's okay to make that change, and you deserve to be happy. And I always think that people deserve to be paid, and paid well, for doing what they love. So when people are stuck sometimes and they come to me and they're like, I don't really know what I want to do, I say to them, well, if you could be paid for doing anything in the world, what would that be? And they might say, well, you know, I'd like to just like stroke dogs all day, but no one's going to pay me for that. But actually there are jobs where, you know, there's always something where you can be following your joy and tuning into what you like. And we all deserve to be happy and healthy. We really do.
Absolutely.
We really do.
Wow.
Yeah. Goodness me. That was a lot.
I do waffle on, don't I?
No, not at all. I think it was really, really insightful, and it gave people lots to think about. Certainly me, lots to think about. You know, following your joy, making sure that you're looking after yourself. So, in terms of inspiration, then, who would be your biggest inspiration when there are those challenges? Who's your biggest inspiration?
Well, I've got you too. I mean, 100%.
Not paid at all.
No, absolutely not. But you know, I've been there since not the very, very beginning of your journey, but from pretty much the beginning.
I
think you guys, I wasn't at the very first networking event, and I'm always fuming over that. When I see you post over the very first networking event, and who remembers this? I'm like, I wasn't at that one. But I think it might have been at the second or the third.
FOMO of like 5 years ago.
I really do get FOMO, but like you too, 100%, because you give such great advice, and you know, but you lead with love, and that's what I really, really like about the Leading Ladies in Business community. So 100% you too. I've got some ladies who, like, nobody would really know the names, but there are other women within the product side of my business as well who are, and a man actually, there's a man called Ian who's just absolutely incredible. And again, it comes from leading with love. But being open and honest and genuine as well, with the business advice that you give and that they give. Denzel Washington's actually a good one for me. There's something that he said that really always sticks with me, and it comes back to that, you know, there's no such thing as failure. You know, I always see failure as your stepping stones, your learning journeys on the way to your success. And he said something that, what was it? It was when he was trying to be an actor and he wasn't successful in the beginning. You know, he was going for all these roles and he wasn't getting them. And a family member that I really loved, and this happens so often, a family member that I really loved said to him, you know, but what are you going to have to fall back on? You know, make sure that safe thing again, you know, make sure you've got something to fall back on. And what he said was, I never really understood that, because I've got no intention of falling backwards. And if I fall, I'm going to fall forwards. So he says, if you fall forwards. If you fail forwards, and use it. Every failure, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how hard it is, use it as your motivation and your inspiration to keep pushing and moving towards that goal. So I really love that. My counsellor said something amazing to me as well that really helped me. This is just something personal to me. And it was just my wake-up call. So one of the great things about school when I was off was that they did provide a counsellor. And he was really, really, really good. And I know I also had some sessions with you, and you were really, really good as well, Claire. So I recommend Claire as well for counselling. But what he said to me one day when I was trying to weigh up, I was like, you know, I feel like I should be going back to school now. I should be ready to go back. I've been off for a few months. Like, I need to go back. I should go back. And he said to me, well, if you go back, you need to make sure that you're putting yourself first, and you need to say, right, I'm going to be in from this hour to this hour, and whatever's not done within that time can't be done, and you leave it, because otherwise you're going to be back to square one. And I was like, well, but I can't do that. That's not the person that I am, because then you see everybody else around you struggling, because they would then have to pick up that workload, because it's just not like that in teaching. But that was just a personal one for me, because it made me realise, it made me admit to myself that I couldn't do that job any longer, maybe, you know, and I did have to think, like, is this something that I do have to let go of? Mel Robbins as well. I used to be a really bad procrastinator, and she has the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule.
Which Claire lives by.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
She even counts me down.
Yeah.
Like, to places.
But it's brilliant for when you're anxious. I think that, you know, you move forwards the most in your life and in your business when you take little steps outside your comfort zone each and every day. So her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule is brilliant for getting you to do things like that. So if anybody who doesn't know it, it is literally just if there's something that you're procrastinating about, and it can be as simple as pressing that snooze button on your alarm in the morning to get out of bed. Yeah. When you hear that alarm go off, you just say, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're up and you do it, and you don't give yourself a chance to talk yourself out of it. And I think the scientific processes behind it is that you're not giving your subconscious time to talk yourself out of doing it. So you just do it. And is it Mel Robbins that says feel the fear and do it anyway, or is that somebody else? But I feel like that all ties in. I think there's a big difference between, because I do believe trust your instincts and trust your gut 100%. But there's a big difference between feeling that terrified fear inside, where that's telling you this is not for me,
fight or flight.
There's something that is not right with this, and this isn't for me. Or that type of fear that could be reframed as excitement, because it's more like anxious, a little bit of anxiousness, but not in a bad way, like a little bit butterflies in your tummy, like, oh, but that there can be something really good on the other side of it. So I think doing that, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and pushing yourself just slightly out of your comfort zone each and every day, just ultimately leads to massive growth, doesn't it?
So we're going to push you out your comfort zone now. We're going to ask you a question.
And there's one thing that I'm never, ever going to face my fear on, ever.
Before you start
on facing your fears, Yeah.
Are we talking about pigeons or are we talking about tea bags?
Well, that as well. Obviously the pigeon thing, but I mean the tea bag hit
Tell
me
you
in
a funny
the face.
story about that.
Don't be going on with any funny stories. We're on the tea bag scenario. not the pigeons.
It's a different podcast. Okay, we're going to push... We're going to push it out your comfort zone now, and we're going to, I know, again, people pleasing is, I think it's just a thing that we just carry around with us, isn't it? This wanting to be liked.
You can please this person.
But I promise you, there's no judgments. There's no, Team Cal, Team Claire in the real world outside this room. But there is.
But I love you both the same. This is so hard.
It's not a choice over love.
Do you know what? No, I'm going to say this now. This is my counsellor head. Okay, it's not about Claire and Cal. It's a behaviour. Okay? So we're going to separate the behaviour from the person. Okay. So it's not Claire and Cal. It's just a behaviour that you're going to choose. Okay. How do you make your cup of tea, Kathy? If you were to make a cup of tea like the way we make
and I can see your tea bag dangling out the side there, so I already know.
I'm a herbal girl. So for me, it's got to be one of the Arbonne teas, which is Clean Tox herbal infusion blend. I'm going to be a real killjoy here because caffeine is a really powerful antioxidant. But there's so many chemical add-ins in
unless you're sponsored by
processed
Yorkshire
coffee and
tea.
Stuff. It was one of the things that massively helped me heal my gut. So I don't really do processed caffeine.
But if you did make that cup of tea,
when I used to make tea. Because I don't even do dairy now either. But when I used to make tea...
this is a good question. If you were to make me and Cal a cup of tea with our Yorkshire tea bags or PG Tips, whoever's going to sponsor us first, how would you make it for us? That's a better question. Should have started with that, shouldn't I?
So I would put the tea bag in.
You put the tea
and
bag
then
in.
I put the water in.
You put the water in?
And then I put the milk. No, sorry, I give it a squeeze.
Yes, you would.
And then I put the milk in. And then I give it another squeeze.
Oh,
and
she
then
even
I take
hugs the tea bag before she puts the milk in.
So that's the end of today's show. We've another wrong un. We can't help these people. Even counsellors do it wrong. But cheers to that, Kathy. We'll leave you with your Arbonne herbal blend. And I'll never drink tea from you again. Subscribe to see more feral behaviour. Next.
Cheers.